BBC World Service. I'm Lise Doucette, and this is A Wish for Afghanistan. This past month in Kabul has been tumultuous, chaotic, sometimes panic-stricken.
Our friends are going to get killed. They're going to kill us.
But US firepower has left the skies. On the ground, Taliban attacks have ended. There's a quiet in most provinces, uneasy, uncertain. Try to imagine a place where most people have never known peace, ever. Those who have can't ever forget what it feels like.
Still, when I'm tired, I go back, I close my eyes, and I think about that time. Even the smell of Kabul was different. I remember myself and my friends, free-spirited. We were hopeful for our future.
Decades ago, this country was a kingdom. Not perfect, but peaceful. They call that time, nostalgically, the golden years. Do you remember it as being golden?
Why wouldn't we call it the golden time? People didn't even have locks on their front doors.
Fatima Gailani, peace negotiator, aid worker, advocate. Her story spans the story of Afghanistan, from those golden days through Soviet occupation, civil war, the Taliban, a US-led invasion, and now the Taliban again.
The whole world knows what has happened. But if you ask me that I still have hope, yes, I still have hope. I believe that we have to talk the Afghan way, the Muslim way, and reason wherever we go.
If you've been with me from the start of our series, and we hope you have, you know that so far we've been speaking with male politicians. Afghan politics is a world mainly of men, always has been. Now it's exclusively male, with the Taliban in charge. But Afghan women have always made a mark, including Fatima Gailani, now 67, elegant, eloquent, Afghan aristocracy. Your father was very prominent. He was the leader of an Islamic Sufi movement. Your mother was related to the king. So you grew up in a very privileged household.
Yes, I grew up in a very, very privileged household. But the way my mother would put our feet very much on the ground, that any of these privileges is not what will make your future. It is really your behavior and what you make of yourself, which is important. I was living like any teenager anywhere in the world. Every day I wanted to be something new. One day I wanted to be member of parliament because parliament was something new. Women were just being elected there. Next day I wanted to be a minister and then diplomat, because we had few very elegant women diplomats.
At that time, there were women cabinet ministers. There were women members of parliament.
Yes, of course they were. I was 8-year-old when, for the first time, women were elected in an open competition. So that, of course, what gave us lots of dreams. I mean, in Afghanistan, women were in a very good place when the coup happened.
The coup, the first in 73. The king toppled. Then a president overthrown, assassinated. Another suffocated by a pillow. One more shot dead in 79 when Soviet tanks rolled in. Fatima's dreams and her days then in Afghanistan ended.
December's invasion had Russian tanks rolling in anger to consolidate by force Russia's influence on this Central Asian country. Afghanistan is today effectively a new satellite state.
I was in London when the invasion happened.
You were in your early 20s, a young mother with a baby.
I was just 25 and I didn't know English. I had to learn English also.
She had to learn more than that. Her father now headed one of the resistance groups created to fight the Soviets, the Mujahideen, the men of jihad or holy war.
My father said, look, jihad has started and the door for women will close, and I want you to give this sacrifice. This is your duty. It is our duty. At that time, I did it. And today, I think this was the best thing that could happen in my life.
I remember you with your white headscarf, the only female face of these mujahideen.
This was the point. The point was that this war is for all Afghans, men and women. And women also support this cause, and a woman could represent this cause.
Fatima Gailani fought this cause with interviews, fundraisers, lobbying from one Western capital to the next, even as hardline mujahideen and communists in Kabul lobbed verbal attacks against her, the female face of resistance.
We are the true voice of the Afghan people. We are the legitimate representative of the Afghan people.
After a decade of grievous war, the Red Army retreated. I was in Kabul then.
February 14th, 1989. Tomorrow is the big day, the historic event in which all Soviet troops are expected to have left Afghanistan.
Soviet troops left, peace never arrived. By 92, when the Mujahideen took over, it soon descended into a bloody civil war. One Mujahideen group fighting against each other. The Mujahideen you spoke for around the world. You're grimacing.
Liz, I can't tell you how disappointing that was.
Depressing.
I was so sad that I couldn't control my tears. And I started to having a depression. I wouldn't leave home. I was even ashamed to face people who didn't even know who I was. That for God's sake, we won a war against a superpower of the time, one of the two superpowers of the time, the Soviet Union, for God's sake. And now we are killing each other. We are fighting over, money, power.
Fatima Gailani also told me a story I'd not heard before. Another missed chance, possibly, to make peace. Not long after Soviet troops left, she received a telephone call out of the blue from Kabul, from the Soviet-backed president Najibullah. He had a message for her father: meet me in secret to talk about peace. Fatima flew from London to Islamabad to make the case.
Some were dead for it, some were dead against it. But I convinced my father to go. We went and we had a very good conversation.
This was in Geneva?
Yes.
Secret talks in 1990?
Yes, it was a secret talk in 1990, 91. And then we had a long talk and he explained to my father and my father got convinced.
But when friends and foreign paymasters got wind of all this, they exploded. No compromise with a president Moscow put in power.
Oh, the door to hell opened. Pakistan, America, everyone was against it, and they gave us sheer hell. I'm telling you, sheer hell for this not to happen. And that was it, really. And the whole thing collapsed, and you know the rest of it, that Afghanistan faced a disaster that we are paying for it until today.
It was sinking in. Allies could sometimes be enemies of what seemed to be Afghans' best interests. And so Fatima Gailani turned her focus to another priority, a master's degree in Islamic studies, an immersion to better understand her own world. Soon after, that world turned upside down. September the 11th, 2001. She was living quietly in the US.
I just saw a second plane come in from the south and hit the South Tower halfway between...
I remember it very, very well. And I was living in Providence, Rhode Island. So I was watching television and all of a sudden these clips came that airplanes are actually flying inside buildings. And I was totally confused and I was shocked.
On September the 11th, enemies of freedom committed an act of war against our country.
Washington wanted justice and revenge, telling Afghanistan's Taliban leaders hand over Al Qaeda's Osama bin Laden. The Taliban refused. The US went to war.
The battle is now joined on many fronts. We will not waver, we will not falter, and we will not fail.
Once the US-led invasion began, and it was clear the Taliban were going to be ousted, did you think, I'm going back, I'm going to end my exile, I'm going to go back to Afghanistan?
Well, yes, I thought I'm going back to Afghanistan. The excitement of going back to Afghanistan was so high.
You went home after more than 20 years of exile. Do you remember the moment your foot touched the tarmac?
Extremely well. My heart was pounding, really pounding. And although it was winter, but I was sweating.
There was roses for you on the tarmac, an entourage with roses.
Yeah, there were lots of people. They came with roses and
the garlands around your neck.
The garlands of the paper flower garlands and all that. It was sweet that these women, that I didn't know them because I was out of the country for 24 years, but they knew me because of the interviews, because of my work and all that. So we went home. And I still, in my head, that beautiful garden that I lived, I was hoping to face that. And I went to a place that I had to sort of open my eyes, close my eyes, open. This is the place I lived. Look at it. That beautiful house we have was in shambles. That beautiful garden was totally destroyed. And then it was a prison for the Taliban.
A prison?
Yeah. So they were using these rooms to imprison Taliban.
Kabul, that you returned to, was in ruin. But in world capitals, they were telling Afghans, we are with you for the long run. We are standing shoulder to shoulder. Did you feel then that Afghanistan finally had the world behind it?
Yes, I felt that, but I had seen it before. I knew that they will desert us.
Even then, 2002?
Yes, because during jihad, they did that, didn't they?
After the Soviets left?
Everyone left. After the Soviet left, everyone left. They left us into a civil war that was partly their fault.
Because they'd been arming and financing the Mujahideen?
Financing the Mujahideen, arming the Mujahideen to fight an invader was fine. But favorism, this is my favorite, this is my man. No, this country had that man. The Americans had that man. This was a prescription for a civil war. And this is exactly what happened.
They started to do that again in 2002. You're nodding that they chose their favorite warlord, their favorite commander.
Always. That's why when I said, look, these people, if they've made this mistake once, they will make this mistake 1,000,000 times. That's why I was not that optimistic that they will stay as angry as I am now. I knew this was coming to come.
But they said that we will not repeat history, that we made the mistake once and we won't make it again. And we won't be like the Soviet Union to take away our troops and money.
Well, they did, didn't they? I knew that they would. I knew it.
But the early years were full of hope. In 2003, Fatima Gailani was where it was happening, drafting a defining document, a new constitution.
Quite frankly, Liz, this was the time that my hope returned, my optimism returned, because we went district to district, village to village. We went mosque to mosque. I would get out of the house after my morning prayers and return at midnight. You cannot imagine how enthusiastic people were. Even women would come. They will sit with us. Illiterate people or not so educated people, they knew exactly what a constitution is. They knew exactly that this is a contract between people and the government. I was really, really taking heart that, no, this time it will work. That's why when Taliban so categorically refused this constitution without even having a look at it, breaks my heart. And when they say this is a product of the Americans, it breaks my heart because it isn't.
The heartbreak began at the very beginning after the US-led invasion in October 2001. The Taliban were on the run then. An interim government was being formed without any Taliban at the table.
I was very disappointed that the Taliban were not part of the negotiations, and I voiced it. I really said that how could we even think that we will have peace if we don't have part of the war with us to sit down? And I remember very well that the sentence I used, I said that they are not piece of ice that we will put in the heat of the sun and hope that they will disappear. They are Afghans, they have their tribes, and they will never disappear. But I had every hope, quite frankly, that when the permanent government, after the transitional government, I was very sure that step number one will be peacemaking and asking Taliban for negotiation. I was hoping that we would do this maybe 18 or even 15 years ago. It would have worked much more. We didn't.
When Afghans chose their first democratically elected president, Fatima Gailani was offered a job she once dreamed of, a place in the cabinet. She turned it down.
I was disillusioned about the politics because this person will become minister of this, not because this person can do that job very well, because this is the quota of those people. So I didn't want to go to the ministerial post.
She took on a different role, heading the Afghan Red Crescent. It gave her a front row seat to witness the cruelty of war, including the US-led campaign to crush the Taliban.
When we have an air raid, it is impossible not to have civilian casualty. So there were endless civilian casualties. Even if they wanted to chase one or two Talib in a village, of course they will go and hide in the village. It is easy to blame them, oh, they are taking human shields. But this is their tribes. They were living and hiding in their tribes. So when they wanted to find those Talibs or kill those Talibs, many other people would kill with them. But these people were hidden from our official television because no one would get there.
So in other words, abuses happened and nobody could see?
Not on purpose. No one was there to see. So most of what happened to the Taliban side was not known by our people, by ordinary Afghans.
But you saw them.
I saw them. It was bad. It was really, really bad. And the worse it became, the more resistance.
So in other words, paradoxically and tragically, it ended up creating more support for the Taliban.
Yes, because they were slowly those elements that we thought gone and finished, broken, defeated. They grew up, slowly came up.
The war kept getting worse, becoming America's longest war. One US president after another wanted to end it. Then in 2018, Donald Trump vowed he'd bring the troops home by talking to the Taliban.
I spoke to the leader of the Taliban today. We had a good conversation.
It took nearly 2 tough years to strike a deal. Then Taliban leaders were told, now you have to talk peace with Afghans. 2020, you received a telephone call to become a negotiator. Tell me about that time.
It was many years past the time that I had promised myself to take my retirement. So I went for my annual checkup to India. And there, surprise, you have a voice box cancer.
Throat cancer.
They call it voice box cancer. I don't know, it's throat. It's not really throat so much. But it was treated. I went to London. I had to go to London and I was treated. And I thought, okay, now I'm treated. I'll take my retirement.
But her callers from Kabul wouldn't take no for an answer. September 2020, she became one of 4 female negotiators in a 21-member team from Kabul.
The Afghan government and Taliban met today in Doha, Qatar, for the start of peace talks. The historic negotiations aim to form a power-sharing government.
I remember you arriving. You were again wearing the white scarf that you had worn when you were a spokesperson of the Mujahideen. I thought, this is a new chapter. When you arrived in Doha to start these first formal talks as a government negotiator, what was your mood then?
Probably it was too optimistic, but I was really, really optimistic because I believe in people's intelligence. I believe in people's dignity. I count on it. Look at the country, for God's sake. We owe it to the people of Afghanistan. We owe it to our country. We owe it to our religion. Peace is the only way, and in order to get to the peace is through negotiation and political settlement. I never thought that intelligent people will become so selfish to make our job so difficult.
Who are you talking about?
I'm talking about our politicians. They don't understand that this is the make and break of the country.
Make or break? Did it break in the final hours? On August 14th this year, the day before Taliban fighters swept into Kabul, a plane was sitting on the tarmac, waiting to take Afghan leaders to Doha for talks. They included former President Hamid Karzai. You may have heard him in our last program.
The Taliban had accepted not to enter Kabul for 2 weeks, and they had accepted that President Karzai, alongside of many of the other political leaders, will come to Doha to sign things, and then it will be a peaceful transfer of power. The airplane was ready to go and pick up everyone, and then all of a sudden, oops, the president is gone. And the rest you know very well.
The president. She's referring to Ashraf Ghani. On August 15th, he suddenly boarded a helicopter, abandoned Kabul to avoid more bloodshed, he said.
I really believed that he wants to bring peace to Afghanistan, even if he is not part of that peace. When I heard that he is actually fled, I thought they were joking with me. But had he stayed, the Taliban would have been in control, would have been in power, yes, but it would have been an inclusive government, I have no doubt.
Could it really have softened the Taliban takeover, a movement boasting of total victory over the mighty US military? Is there any simple reason as to why this last chapter hasn't resulted in what Afghans and their allies had hoped for?
Yes, greed. For our part, greed and selfishness of our people. And from our friends, Western friends, they simplify things very much, and they always opt for the quick fix. You can't quick fix these things.
They say we've been here for 20 years. Now it's up to Afghans. It's up to you now.
It has never been up to Afghans. I didn't choose this Cold War. I mean, don't come now and think that I'm a stupid Afghan and will believe whatever you tell me. No, we were together in this thing. You owe it to me. You owe it to my country. You owe it to fix back my country. You owe it to us to bring us to the place that I don't need you anymore.
And for all that hasn't been achieved, what has been achieved in the past 20 years?
Look at these businesses, look at these universities, look at these young people studying, look at the skilled young people. These are equal to young people in anywhere in the world. Don't they deserve to have a normal country, to use what they have learned? Or they should get out and run away from the country? Is this fair?
Many Afghans feel a burning sense of injustice. Some have fled, seeking safety. Many more are still here, unable or unwilling to leave. But Fatima Gailani has come home to Kabul. Perhaps it's her past, her pedigree, her passion that's drawn her. She insists she has to try, to do whatever she can to make a difference, as the Taliban recreate their Islamic emirate, new rules already restricting the lives of women and girls. This war has defined all of your adult life. Do you think, Fatima Gailani, you will see peace a lasting peace in your lifetime?
I must. I have to. I deserve it. And I will do everything in my power. I will make scene if I don't.
What does that mean?
I will shout. I will shout at both sides, and I will spell out the mistakes both sides have made.
That could make a difference.
Even if not, it will be out of my chest. Maybe it is not in my destiny to retire ever.
Your wish now?
My hope is that our Taliban will see that those mistakes brought so much misery on Afghanistan that they should not repeat the same mistakes. That's my desire. That's my hope.
Next week, in A Wish for Afghanistan, another powerful voice, human rights defender Shahrazad Akbar. Is there a place for her in a country ruled by the Taliban?
I still sometimes think maybe this is a nightmare that I'll wake up from. And despite this feeling of helplessness, I'm aware of my own power. I do have a voice. And I will most probably fail, but that doesn't stop me from trying. I will push and push and push.